The Poco series of smartphones is rather fascinating because the first one was a bit of a legend in its own right. Then the firm started deviating from the focus on the specs element, and now it feels like between Xiaomi, Poco and Redmi, they have completely saturated the market with variants on variants on variants. So, what is the Poco F3? Should you buy it? Yeah, all that coming up in today's review. Thanks to Damien Wild for providing today's smartphone, guys. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and this is my review of the Poco F3. So this thing sits in a very convoluted lineup of Xiaomi/Poco smartphones, and design/spec wise, it lines up kind of between the Mi 11i and the Mi 11 Lite on the Xiaomi side. The specs are very respectable: Snapdragon 870, a high-end chipset, 6 or 8GB of RAM, which is more than enough, a 120Hz 1080p AMOLED display, and a 48 megapixel main camera with a 4520 mAh battery to top it off. That's a very, very respectable spec sheet, and coming in at £300 makes it almost a bargain. And given that it's running the latest version of Android as well, there's not much to hate about this smartphone, at least right off the bat. So what is the F3? Well, it's pretty cookie cutter for an upper mid-range flagship killer sort of thing. It's glass both sides with a plastic frame, it's got a centre aligned punch hole with a big camera bump on the back, it's got a USB-C port, and it's got relatively thin bezels surrounding the very typical 6.67 inch display. The shallower than normal camera bump is pretty cool, as it doesn't catch on your trouser pocket nearly as badly as other devices. Oh, and props to Xiaomi for putting a proper capacitive fingerprint reader on the side of this thing. It's quick, it's accurate, and it's very well placed. Thank you. The IP53 water and dust resistance rating is nice to have at this price point as well, though it's not quite as protective as some of the flagship smartphones. That said, again, for this price, it's nice to have that included either way. The display itself is pretty standard for 2021, which isn't to say that it's bad by any means. It's a very good panel, and I think many people will enjoy it. It's big, high res, bright, it's quick. Anyone calling 1080p at this size too low of a resolution really needs to sort out their priorities. It's more than big enough to play games on, watch TV seasons on even, and given that the punch hole is in the centre, 9 times out of 10 you're not actually going to have that intrude on the content that you're watching unless you pinch to zoom and fill the whole display, and even then it's not that bad of a distraction. It's also a very solid performer. Games and the like run very smoothly thanks to the high-end processor and plenty of RAM. If you're a mobile gamer in any way, this might be the phone for you if you don't have a lot of money to spend. And it should be a solid performer for a couple of years going into the future as well. You only have to look at something like the Poco F1, the original Poco phone, which runs pretty well in 2021. Okay, it's not blazing fast anymore, but it's still more than usable. Battery life is standard stuff too. It's got a 4500 or thereabouts mAh battery and 33 watt fast charging, which is pretty standard for Xiaomi. And what that means is if you're a lighter user, you're going to get 2 days of battery life, and if you're a heavier user, 1 day is more likely your thing. Xiaomi software does a great job of suppressing background applications, and sometimes to its detriment, it actually does suppress some notifications, and this is an issue that we've had with Xiaomi smartphones for ages, but it's something that you live with if you have a Xiaomi. It can also be tuned and turned off and all sorts for worse battery life, but of course with more accessibility there. The efficient software is definitely divisive. The skin is a significant departure from stock Android, but I quite like the look of it. It's bubbly, it's fresh. There are a few layout options that I disagree with that I've spoken about a couple of times before, but these are all changeable within the settings, which is fine. Cameras are usually a sore subject for Poco smartphones, and Xiaomi smartphones in general, to be honest. This setup focuses on the main and the selfie cameras, with the extra cameras just kind of there to fluff out the spec sheet, as I say in a lot of mid-range smartphone reviews. What this translates to is a set of okay but not overly impressive images, and if you are buying a Poco phone for its camera, then you probably need to rethink your strategy here. Poco phones are not made for good cameras. They're decent for sure, and if you're not a camera nerd, you probably won't care about the loss of accurate colour or dynamic range, but honestly, these photos aren't bad at all on a technical level. Low light and challenging high contrast scenarios prove a little bit more tricky for the F3's camera. It's not as powerful as some might want, but you have to remember that this is a £300 phone with a very solid set of performance and battery specs. It leaves little room for a great camera, and this does okay with what it has. And that kind of sums up the F3. It's not for those who want a fantastic camera, it's not for those who want mind-boggling designs features, it's for people who want really good performance, really good battery life, decent software updates and stuff like that, and all for under £300. And I think the F3 does a pretty good job, to be honest. Would I buy one? No, but I prefer more of a better camera experience, so I'd probably buy like a used flagship with a really good camera, something like a Pixel 4. However, for someone who just wants raw performance, this thing is really good, and thanks to that capacitive fingerprint reader, the small punch hole, it is quite convenient to have as well. So this one gets my recommendation for being just an overall pretty good smartphone. And thanks to Damien Wild for providing it for today's video, I really appreciate that. So check out his links in the video description as well as our new Discord server and stuff like that. Also, whilst you're down there, check out my social medias. I want to give a massive shout out to my patrons for being continually supportive. Thank you so much. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Peace.